You have opinions about tattoos. Everyone does. Either you have one and you love it, or you have one and you regret it, or you don't have one and you judge the people who do, or you don't have one and you secretly want one, but you're scared of your mother's reaction. Whatever your relationship with tattoos is, I need you to set it aside for the next few minutes. Because the story of why humans started permanently marking their skin is not about fashion. It's not about rebellion. It's not about that tribal armband you got in Cancun in 2008 that you now describe as a phase. It goes back further than any civilization you learned about in school, and the reason ancient humans tattooed themselves will make you question everything you think you know about pain, medicine, and what it means to be human. Let's start with a dead man in a glacier. In 1991, two hikers in the Alps between Austria and Italy stumbled across something frozen in the ice. They thought it was a dead hiker. It wasn't. It was a 5,300-year-old man. We call him Otzi, and Otzi had 61 tattoos. Not decorative, not tribal, not a motivational quote in a font nobody can read. 61 marks carefully placed on specific parts of his body, his knees, his ankles, his lower spine, his wrists, basically everywhere you complain about after age 30. And when researchers mapped every single tattoo on Otzi's body and compared them to ancient Chinese acupuncture charts, they found something that made the entire room go quiet. Otzi's tattoos lined up almost perfectly with traditional acupuncture pressure points used to treat joint pain and digestive issues. He had arthritis in exactly those joints. The tattoos weren't decoration, they were medicine. The oldest tattoos ever found on a human body were a medical prescription written directly onto the skin, which means the first tattoo artist in recorded history was essentially a doctor who worked with a sharp bone and no anesthesia. So not that different from some doctors today, honestly. Let that sit for a second. 5,300 years ago, before antibiotics, before surgery, before any medical system you would recognize, a man in the Alps was treating his chronic pain by having someone mark his skin with a sharp tool over and over again, directly on the spot that hurt. And it probably worked. Not because of magic, because the process of tattooing, the repeated puncturing of skin, triggers a localized inflammatory response, releases endorphins, and stimulates nerve endings in ways that genuinely reduce pain perception in the surrounding area. He wasn't being superstitious. He was doing something that modern pain clinics now replicate with acupuncture needles. He just did it permanently, which is either genius or extremely committed depending on how you look at it. The ancient world didn't separate medicine from ritual. That's a very modern idea. For most of human history, those things were the same thing. Now here's where it gets strange. Otzi is the oldest tattooed human we've ever found, but that doesn't mean he was the first. It just means he's the oldest one we've found, frozen well enough to preserve soft tissue. Tattoos don't survive. Skin doesn't survive. What survives is bone. What survives is stone. What survives is pottery. A tattooed body buried in normal ground conditions dissolves back into the earth in a few centuries and takes every mark on it into oblivion. The absence of older tattooed bodies is not evidence that older tattoos didn't exist. It's evidence that the earth is very good at erasing soft tissue. We know tattooing tools existed long before Otzi. Sharp bone implements with pigment residue have been found at sites dating back 30,000 years. That's not a typo. That's not a rounding error. That is so long ago that the people using those tools had never seen a farm, a city, a written word, or a bad tattoo they needed to explain at a job interview. We were making marks on our skin before we had agriculture, before we had pottery, before we had writing, before we had anything that textbooks normally call civilization. We were already doing this, which means tattooing is older than bread, older than the wheel, older than every single thing your history teacher told you was the beginning of human progress. The beginning of human progress apparently involved someone picking up a sharp bone and thinking, you know what this arm needs? The question is why? The honest answer is, we don't know exactly. And anyone who tells you they know exactly is lying to you, probably trying to sell you something, possibly a tattoo. What we do know is that across every ancient culture that left enough evidence to study, tattooing shows up. Not as a coincidence, not as parallel invention, as a consistent, persistent, universal human behavior that appears independently on every continent where humans lived That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because something deep in human psychology is driving it. Ancient Egypt. Mummified women dating back 4,000 years had tattoos on their abdomens and thighs. Archaeologists assumed these were marks of low social status. Archaeologists, it turns out, are sometimes very confidently wrong in extremely interesting ways. These tattoos clustered around areas that expand during pregnancy. Researchers now believe they were protective marks placed to protect mother and child during childbirth, one of the most dangerous things a human being could do for most of history. Not shameful, sacred. These women weren't being marked as outcasts, they were being armored by someone who loved them enough to hurt them carefully. Ancient Polynesia. The word tattoo comes from the Polynesian word tatau. In a world without passports or ID cards, your skin was your biography. Every mark was a chapter. You couldn't fake it, you couldn't lose it, you couldn't have it stolen. And before you say that sounds extreme, consider that we now carry all our identity in a rectangle of glass that we panic about when the battery hits 4%. Different systems, roughly similar anxiety. Pain is not just suffering, pain is proof. Culture after culture used tattooing at moments of transition, adolescence becoming adulthood, civilian becoming warrior, outsider becoming member of the group. The pain wasn't incidental to the ritual. The pain was the ritual. Because anything worth marking permanently on your body should cost you something. If it was free and painless, it wouldn't mean anything. We've replaced that understanding with numbing cream and a Spotify playlist in the waiting room. In 2018, researchers found 2 preserved bodies in Siberian burial mounds from 2,500 years ago, both covered in elaborate tattoos so sophisticated it would have taken years to complete. Not a quick session between a lunch break and a dentist appointment, a decades-long project of self-construction. In a society where life was brutal and short, someone decided this mattered enough to spend years on. We are the only animal that deliberately marks itself, the only animal that looks at its own body and thinks it needs a story on it. No other animal does this, not even close. The global tattoo industry is now worth over $3 billion a year. Tattoo removal worth another $5 billion. A shaman spending years building a tattoo that told his entire life story, and a person in 2024 getting laser removal on something they got on a Tuesday because they were bored are technically doing related things. The Tuesday tattoo, the universal symbol of a decision made without consulting a single person who loves you. The gap between those two people is not about the tattoo. It's about what we've decided things are allowed to mean. The oldest humans marked themselves because it cost something, because in a world where nothing was permanent, they wanted one thing that was. Your skin is still the same skin. That impulse is still inside you. You feel it when you see a tattoo that actually means something. When someone shows you a mark representing a loss, a survival, a love, and you feel the weight of it before they even explain it. That feeling is ancient. You've always known, because the humans who taught you how to be human already knew it. They just wrote it somewhere you couldn't read unless you knew where to look. On their skin, in permanence, in pain, in proof. If this changed how you think about the tattoo on someone's arm, that's exactly what it was supposed to do. Subscribe for more videos that go this deep into the things you thought you already understood.